Hi YouTube, welcome back to Wtf Rc Cars. So, cracking on with the Micro B, we now have the GPM shocks, and these are LMB3236-B-BK, so these are blue and black. There's a few reasons why I decided to go with GPM, or why you might decide to go with GPM over the Endura or the Losi ones. Basically, these come pre-filled with oil. I have checked these, so they do come with oil, so I'm going to try the oil that they come with. You do get an extra set of harder springs and softer springs with them, so you can tune your suspension more. I prefer the colour of these to the Endura, and you do get extra screws with little washers to fasten them on, because they don't use the stock sort of ball attachments. But let's bring in for a close-up look and see if we can get these fitted. So we do have the GPM shocks, and as I say, I did take these apart just to check and see what we get with them. Now we have got little resealable zip bags, and you do get a set of harder springs. The softer ones, I believe, are the ones fitted to it. We do get a set of short shocks for the front, and we get a set of longer shocks for the rear. And I must admit, the machining on these does feel fantastic. You have got them pre-fitted with tiny little washers or tiny little rubber O-rings to take the play out of them on both sides. And we do have these little washers that I'm guessing there for when we fasten them in the top. So you'd put your screw with your washer on that side, and the standoff goes to your shock mounts. And if we look at them, let's try and get them lined up so you can see them. You can see that they are short and long for front and rear. So we've got the absolutely lovely task of fighting with these little ball studs. So if first we try and pop one off, not entirely sure how easy this is going to be. Not too bad. So if we pop one of the front ones off, then we're going to flip the RC over. And let's see what size this is. Yeah, it's an 050. So if we remove our stock screw, I'll just put that to one side, and we lift our original shock out. So if you're a little confused, you can line it up with your shocks and see what we've got that fits. Now the front shocks, it looks like we've got a slight lip on one side of this and no lip on the other. So let's have a look at our tiny little washers. I'm going to need a microscope to work on this thing, and they are ever so slightly bigger, so they should stop your O-ring popping off. So entirely up to you which way around you mount it. It has got more of a standoff on that side, so logically I'd mount it that way, so the bigger standoff is on the back to give you clearance. But with them putting the GPM logo on the front, it would look like they want you to mount them that way, which would also mean the smaller part on the back, I would put the little O-ring, little washer, sorry, on the back to keep that O-ring where it needs to be. So maybe we'll take that approach with front. But first off, we need to get the original ball stud out, and I'm really not a fan of these little things. I would much prefer if these had got some sort of hex in the front of them, because doing this is an absolute pain. And with it being a small RC, there's not really enough room to get a full rotation on this at all on most of these. So we can just about get it as it starts screwing out, but you do have to push them right on to get these to undo. And we can save as little ball stud. So looking at these shocks, it does look like they're wanting us to fit it this way. So if we get one of those new screws and we drop that through, and then we put one of our little washers, and that should make sure that the O-ring can't come off at all. So if we drop that into place, and I believe these are going to be 050, yep they are. And for this I'm going for the outermost holes, just because that's where the original shocks were. So it does look like it screws in fine and it's not binding. So let's flip it over and see if there's any play once we get this bottom into the arm. So you're definitely not going to get a shim or spacer in with these. And we just need to line it up. So we do get 5 of these little washers, I believe, and you only need 4 for the top of the actual shock mounts. I don't think there's any benefit to trying to fit one on the bottom, because it's not going to help hold the O-ring in or anything. And don't tighten this down too much, because it's going to try and crush our shocks. So again, we'll remove the stock screw, flip it over, and we'll get a shock off. And we're just going to need to remove the ball stud mount. Then if we look at a shock again, we're going to want one of the screws. Definitely going to want one of our little washers. See if we can get that on the rear. And on the lower part of the shocks, I've gone for the innermost hole on the A-arm, as that's what we were running stock. So we don't want to over tighten this. If we flip it over, get it lined up to the center. And we're just going to want to get a new screw in. Again, don't over tighten it. We don't want to make that too stiff. But yeah, looks like they fit absolutely fine. The stock oil does seem really nice, and the stock springs. So let's move across to the rear. On this, we're going to have to pop both the shocks off. So you want to get these off first. And then we've got the lovely task of screwing these out. So I'm not going to bore you with this, because it's going to be a bit of a tedious task. We're just going to be doing that for a long time. So I'll get these 2 ball studs out and then we can carry on. So after removing these 2 ball joints, I realised that you should get 6 washers, because we're going to need 1 for the top and 1 for the bottom of these, and GPM only put 5 in. So luckily I've got 2 slightly bigger washers, but the internal diameters are still small enough. So I've swapped them out, and it will sort of just protect top at shock towers, maybe. But yeah, for all of the GPM parts, that's the first bit. We had 1 of the little washers missing. So once we got the tops at shocks off, we've then got to remove the bottoms. And then again, we've got a lovely tedious task of trying to undo these. And at least you can get like a quarter of a turn at a time on these. But we just need to screw these two out. I think for me, I'm just going to get my shock pliers on them and whip them out. But yeah, we've got to get the two bottom ball joints out. So once we've got his ball joints screwed out of the lower arms, we can then look to assemble his shocks. Hopefully for you guys, you get enough of these little washers. As I say, there were one missing on mine, so I've had to swap the two front ends out. But it looks like the most sensible approach is to have the standoff facing the shock tower. So if we go for his outermost holes, and again, don't go crazy tight with these because you will try and crush the shock. And then if we line it up with the bottom, and I think the stock position was the innermost, so again we're going to need another screw and a washer. And don't go crazy tight, and just make sure nothing's binding. So we'll flip it round, and we're going for the opposite shock now. It's a shame we had a missing washer on this, because up to now the GPM parts have been pretty good on this. After speaking to a few guys that have tried quite a few of the Endura parts, they don't seem so impressed with them. Seems to be an awful lot of slop in the Endura on all the steering assembly, and quite a few other parts don't seem to fit brilliant. So going for the innermost hole on the bottom of the rear shocks. So that should be his shocks fitted. Does seem to land pretty good. And this is a full weighted RC. We've got the battery and everything in it. We've got a lot of alloy parts on this. But yeah, doesn't feel too bad at all, even with no preload on them. We have got a few more bits to put on this, so the weight may increase a little bit, so I'm not going to try and tune our suspension just yet. I think as it is stock, we're probably going to want a little bit of preload on the rear. Did seem to be slapping down a little bit, a little harder than what I'd like. That seems better. It's not bouncing. You can swap these springs out, so if you do find it a little bit too weak on the back or on the front, depending on how you drive it and how you've got it weighted, you can correct that. But with racing buggies, you do want a little bit of chassis slap as they land. They tend to slap the back of the RC. But yeah, it's not bouncing. Does feel quite nice. Doesn't feel too bad at all. And that's with the stock oil it comes with. It doesn't say what oil this is, but you can swap it out. You just grab the collar and screw the top off, and you can put whatever thickness of oil you like in them. But yeah, it seems pretty planted. They do look really nice. Only slight disappointment is, yeah, we seem to be one of these short. But luckily, I had a dig about. I think these are from the Tamiya Monster Beetle kit. I think I had a few of these spare from that. I'm sure that's where they come from. But yeah, that is the GPM shocks all now fitted, and it is looking pretty damn bling. So let's wrap this one up. So there we have it. That's the GPM shocks, the LMB3236B BK. They do come with harder springs as well, and hopefully yours have the right amount of these little tiny washers. Save you an hour's worth of going around trying to find things that'll fit it. But yeah, it is on, it does all fit, they do feel nice, and they look pretty bling as well. Like I said, nice they come with tunable springs, tunable collars, and unlike the Endura ones, these are pre-filled with oil. Doesn't say which it is, but it doesn't feel too bad. If anything, might be a little stiff, but until we get this on the track, we're not going to know. But thanks again for watching Wtf Rc Cars. Hopefully you find this useful, entertaining, or just like listening to my incessant ramblings. Don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, chat to friends and family, and catch you guys again in the next one.